Welcome to Module 5, Cyber Regulations and Standards. Okay, before we start our um, lecture, let's see a couple of news, right? First one is crippling cyber attacks. This information tops concern for election day. So, as you all know, US is closing in for their election deadline, right? So there's a lot of concerns for the protection of the election machines, right? Zoom in a little. Zoom in more. Okay, let's see. So again, what most people are scared is isn't the winners and losers for the election day, right? It's more of like attacks on local infrastructure, right? Crippling ransomware, right? And disinformation campaigns. Again, because in the advent of meaning with the creation of social media, where it requires more engagement and fake news gives better engagement. So disinformation campaigns are very likely to happen, right? And it's so hard to do fact checking to really know what is true. Let's see. So again, what is the motive for the malicious actors, meaning the bad hackers, right? They do want to disrupt or influence the election, again, causing chaos, or maybe because they someone paid them to do it as well, right? So authorities and election officials have tried to take precautions, right, to ensure safe elections. However, given the recent hack involving Hall County, um, where election data was released to public for failure to pay a ransom, so that's a big problem that's happened. So, if we want to be more specific, right, which local service that they are or are concerned that will be disrupted, the electronic poll books, municipal IT infrastructure, informational applications, and digital aware, right? Research and created a study that it averages around 30 potential vulnerabilities on municipal computers, right? And the attacker, if there's an attacker, there's 15 ways to penetrate a computer. Oh, so here's another reason, right? Why it's easily to be disrupted, right? Because many of these systems are publicly accessible, right? So again, once you open your computer, port, system, voting machine to the public, that is easily attacked as well from the outside coming in, right? Now you wanna make sure that your software inside is has a good defense lockdown, like voter registration is a public facing app or a public place lookup, polling place lookup, right? Hmm. So the problem with getting attacked on ransomware on the November 4th, right? The election day is the mail-in count, right? So we do have voters who vote physically, and we do have voters who vote by mail, right? So the mail-in count would now be questioned, right? And because there are problems that the other party supporters do try to vote physically in person, and the other party tends to vote via mailing their ballots, right? So here's an interesting as well. So maybe before hackers, the bad hackers, try to basically attack voter registration database, but because they are now better protected, they're like, okay, let's look for another point of entry, right? So now they are looking to deny access to voter registration list on election day, right? So it could be that maybe the voter registration lists are less secured, right? Which can become more of a target. Okay, let's look for another news. Next is we help a retiree, someone who retired, win back her money from PayPal, a payments online service or money transfer service as well, and UPS, United States United Postal Service. If that is correct, what is UPS? Because there's UPS and USPS, just to be clear, right? United Parcel Service, okay, and the other one is United States Postal Service. Just an FYI, those are two different um, organizations. So, and uncovered a network of 39 scam sites, right? So again, one of the target for attackers usually are old people because they are usually less knowledgeable of the scam, right? So let's zoom in. Okay, so there's this person where basically was falling for the scam where she thought she's getting a discounted price for an item that she usually buys, right? It did not look suspicious, right? So the retiree tried to pay with PayPal, right? The seller uses um, the UPS, right? Oh, so what's interesting is the seller provided a UPS tracking number for the delivery, but the UPS tracking number was already delivered 5 days earlier. So they were giving her a different tracking number. Okay, so they asked for support that did not help, right? And it looks like the retiree was doing some research and found someone who basically beat scammers from stealing his money, right, in a complex PayPal Facebook scam. So again, with this sentence, right, in this case, Miss Taylor opened a buyer protection claim when her purchase didn't arrive. Okay. When we consulted the seller, they were able to provide tracking information. As a result, we rejected her claim, right? So now it looks like PayPal, the organization, has some loopholes in their policy, right? That they, if someone can just provide a tracking information, it can it can sound as a correct transaction or illegal transaction, right? Given the time that has passed, we are no longer able to verify Miss Taylor's claim in relation to this tracking information being suspicious, but they did give her a refund to dispute a positive resolution. Okay. So they do try to follow the scammers, the site, and it was already been taken down, but she was able to look for an archive version. So this is interesting as well with the Wayback Machine, right? If you go to that website, right, you are able to access some of the very old web page that doesn't exist anymore because they basically save old web pages, right? Unfortunately, it did not include the address and phone number, so they couldn't verify that transaction. Okay. So she started looking at the terms of service and they got the address. Okay, let's see. And when they basically got that, so we when they run the address, they saw another website, right? A different website now. Okay. And it looks like the duplicate of the first website that she was scammed, right? And then they run the IP address. It looks like there are 37 website on the same server. So if you are the hacker, maybe if you try to scam people, maybe put it in different servers, right? And now because it's clustered on one server, so now the website, the server is very malicious. I mean suspicious now, right? So they did make a graph out of it. Looks like it. Okay, the logo, the website. So again, the website could look uh, real. So we can skip more over here to not take long. Let's see. So I guess just to end, the summary of this one is um, how the PayPal UPS scam works is victim buys an item from a fake online shop, right, using PayPal as a money transfer system or payment. Then scammer immediately generates a fraudulent UPS tracking code, right? It could be a different tracking code for a different item. Then the victim receives the code and waits for the package, right? And then four, package never arrives, and the victim basically tries to dispute, right, to PayPal, and PayPal would side with the money because they provided a tracking number. So again, this is a problem with the policy. Okay, as we remember when we were talking about cybersecurity, right? You should have a good policy as well with some of your contracts or your online selling policy, money transfer policy, because those loopholes people take advantage of. And then lastly, victim loses money, right? The scammer gains more money. Okay, so that, and I did have a similar news like this before where it's common for some of the hackers to steal a domain name, right? So, for example, I own a website name. Um, let's say I own PayPal as the website name, right? And then a hacker or an attacker can basically steal that domain name, right? And then now your domain name provider would say that it is a legal transaction, even though it's not because of policy loopholes. Okay, so heading back. So we'll now head back to our lecture. And yesterday we learned about risk assessment, right? We learned about the planning, the doing, and the acting and evaluating, right? And we have created some risk matrices to help us check the risk associated with a certain system or application or an object, right? And that would also depend on the scope and the risk appetite of the business owner or the manager. Okay, so for today's lessons, we'll be talking more about cybersecurity regulations, right? Our outcome is basically to develop policies, procedures needed to respond and remediate, meaning fix, right? Cyber attacks on an organization's core systems, right? Like main systems, and describe a plan to restore functionality to the infrastructure. Next is implement systems, apply tools, and use concept to minimize risk to an organization cyberspace to address cybersecurity threats. So this has been the outcome for most of our modules. As for the objectives, though, we'll try to be more familiar with U.S. laws and European Union laws, right? The HIPAA, the PCI, the Sarbanes-Oxley, and other U.S. laws and regulations. Define and discuss IT security policies. Define what is effective and ineffective for IT security policies. Review legal and regulatory requirements relative to your country, right? We'll do that as a group activity later. Identify two laws for your country that protect data and privacy. Examine data, electronic, and privacy protection laws in other countries. Okay, and discuss legal and regulatory requirements affecting information security. Okay, next up, standards. So when we say standards, these are basically mandatory requirements, code of practice approved by a recognizable external standards organization, right? When we say mandatory requirements, it means businesses and organization must follow this, right? Failure to follow the mandatory requirement would mean penalties and fines, and also a not so good effect on your reputation, right? And there are many standards, right? The ISO, uh, ISACA, IAPP, NIST, NIST, PCI, right? So the ISO uh, 27,000 series, right? This is the International Standards Organization, puts out many standards, right? However, the 27,000 series specifically focus on cybersecurity. So you might have seen ISO many times. I should be right. ISO standards. Usually they put it with a small logo on a product. Let's see, product. Let's see. Um, yeah. So for example, ISO certified product, right? You would see this from time to time in a packaging, right? It would say ISO certified, right? So it does follow a standard, right, of best practices, right? It could be not only cybersecurity, right? Let's say the correct way to uh, build the product through maybe ethical means, through good business processes, right? And so on and so forth, right? Having the ISO certification basically gives your brand a better reputation, right? Because you do have some quality management. Okay, so some examples, right? So the 2016, right, standards how an information security management system should work. The next one is the main information security techniques, right? Next is the description of the controls. the guidance on planning and information security management system, the metrics and measurements, right? So you now can quantify them. The next one is the main standard when conducting an information risk management program. And next is intention of exchanging information securely between organizations, right? So that's why a lot of people, when they develop technology, um, they try to make sure that it's encrypted. It's not just information that can easily be decrypted, right? And why is that the normal? Again, one is it's part of the standards, right? And as you can see, the standards uh, is able to guide your cybersecurity implementation, right, of your policies in every step. So another standards that we do have is the payment card industry data security standards, which is has the acronym PCI DSS, right? So this was developed to encourage and enhance cardholder data security and facilitate the broad adoption of consistent data security measures globally, right? So these are basically using credit cards. That's one of it, right? Doing secure credit card online transactions, right? And as we have mentioned in one of the previous lectures before, is when you're creating an application, an e-commerce website, implementing your payment service system to comply with PCI DSS might require a lot of work. So most of the time, people would um, just integrate a third-party provider like Stripe, right? Just to show you what Stripe is, like Stripe, so that upon connecting Stripe, you do have PCI DSS compliance right away, right? So it helps you make sure that the transactions are secure, right? The credit card information is not stored on your website because you don't really need them, right? You just use Stripe to use it. Maybe let's say products, right? Online payments. Let's see. I will show why, right? So again, they usually give you a plug and play code to, oh, it's nice. So they have also what they call Stripe Radar using machine learning, right? To gather data from millions of global businesses to protect you from fraudsters, right? That is interesting. Okay, one thing is not only that it does secure payment, it can handle 135 currencies. So you don't have the trouble of doing your um, currency exchange logic, right? Supports a lot of programming language, right? So here is usually what you're really buying for that, right? When you use Stripe for your payments, you already have compliance, right? You have the PCI DSS level 1 certification, right? And the AES encryption, the standard AES 256, right? Okay, and back. So the payment card industry data security standard provides a baseline, right? Meaning a minimum requirement or a minimum of technical and operational requirements designed to protect data, account data. It applies to all entities involved in payment card processing. So it includes merchants, processors, acquirers, issuers, and service providers. So here's a high level overview. right? So we have the items on the left. Let's say you have the build and maintain a secure network and system, right? You do need to have a firewall installed and maintained to protect cardholder data, right? So you don't use the default for system password. Yesterday, someone asked for a default username and account and password, and also we need to always create a new username and password and delete that default. Okay, next item is the protect cardholder data. Protect stored cardholder data. This could be data encrypted at rest, right? And data encrypted in transit. So when the data is just on the database, it should be encrypted. When the data moves from one system to another through a network, that should also be encrypted, right? So that is the number four actually. Next item is maintain a vulnerability management program, right? Want to protect all systems against malware and regularly update antivirus softwares or programs. And we do hope that update is a good update. Develop and maintain secure systems and application, right? So one way to do that is make sure you do not only have a standard software development life cycle, but you should have a secure software development life cycle, right? To keep building or improving your applications. Next is you want to implement strong access control measures, right? If you have the RBAC, which is the role-based access control, right? This is now to restrict to cardholder data by business need to know, right? They would only allow the viewing of the data if it requires them and not just give everyone access. Next is identify and authenticate access to system components. So in every part, if you can basically add a security feature to authenticate the transaction, maybe through a token, right? To make sure that it's the correct transaction, it's the correct user that's requesting it. Restrict physical access to cardholder data, so protecting your server rooms, for sure. Next item is regularly monitor and test networks. So track and monitor. So not only you implement a secure system, but you have to make sure you monitor them, right? And you also do some tests, so security systems and processes. So do try to um, hire hire testers, right, for doing um, white box testing and black box testing. The white box testing means that you show everything to the tester. Here's our architecture, here's our system, right? Try to attack and check for vulnerabilities. If we say block box testing, it means you have a tester, maybe you hired the tester, right? And you said, this is our application. I won't show you any architecture or whatever. Try to hack it and show me vulnerabilities, right? The last item here it says maintain an information security policy, right? Uh, Again, that's is to address information security for all personnel. So the security policy should that it really includes on training them to be more aware for cybersecurity issues. Okay, so some examples, right? Let's say you have a requirement to do the establish and implement firewall and router configuration standards, right? The procedure could be you inspect and check documents specified to verify the standards that are completed. And the guidance would be the firewalls and routers are key components of the architecture, meaning defining what are these system in place, right? Um, So firewall basically controls entry and exit, the inbound and outbound rules, right? These devices are software or hardware devices that block unwanted access, right? So you define an inbound rule to block unwanted access and manage authorized access, right? Into, right? That's also inbound rules again, and out of the network, which is outbound rules. Next is you do want to have configuration standards and procedures that will help ensure that the organization's first line of defense in the protection of its data remains strong. Okay, so before we tackle NIST, which is National Institute of Science and Technology, let's go ahead and go to some of the muddiest points. Okay, first is we have from Harlan, right? Why do most hackers do not use theft as a purpose, but just to prove their ability to perform pranks, right? How can organizations and individuals prevent hackers as much as possible? Again, um, uh, again, as some people would wanna brag about their ability, right? And one of the ways is basically hack something to gain some uh, notoriety. When we say notoriety, it's basically a reputation, but on the negative side, right? But you still get reputation, right? Even though it's bad reputation. It's like publicity, there's good and bad, but publicity is still publicity. You still get famous from it. Uh, Maybe other ways to lessen this one is maybe have I do know that there's a lot of like hacking cybersecurity hack conferences already where maybe you can showcase your skills and show that you're the best of the best, right? But again, some people just choose to do it for pranks, right? Why again? Um, Again, me us humans, we do prank each other too, right? We tell jokes, right? And again, some people can also do it in online. Next is how can organizations and individuals prevent hackers as much as possible? This is through employee aware cybersecurity awareness training, right? Making sure their policies are in place, don't have loopholes, as we've been seeing as a um, common running theme, right? That most of the problem is there's a loophole, right? And maybe also having the government play a role to say that there are big fines and penalties, right? And maybe jail time as well. From Zio, he says he's most interested in this part of security agency surveillance, although the security department has brought protection to the public's information. The public should also seriously doubt whether the information they see has been screened. Okay. So again, one of the questions as well is you if you have more surveillance, you do get more protection, right? Because crimes are now being seen in the videos, right? Being captured in the videos. But again, more surveillance also means more, so it removes more of your privacy as well, right? So this is always a problem where do you want more protection but you get less privacy, or do you want more privacy then you get less protection, right? And again, what's scary with surveillance as well, and when you add machine learning, and then maybe now machine learning could maybe predict who is gonna commit a crime or whatnot, right? And then now they would stop it before it even happens, right? So that's a big ethics question again, and we've seen this in some of the movies and even animes, right, where they have this surveillance system that can predict crimes. But then again, as humans, all of us have some thoughts for some days that we might want to do some crime, but it does not really, we don't really act upon it, right? So that's why ethics plays a big role as well. So next, from uh, John C, right? I felt that if an ordinary person breaks away from the protection of the security agency, it seems that he cannot resist these attackers. True, because by yourself it may be hard. Even security agency itself is often attacked. Does this mean that the security agency is not reliable enough? Or are we capable of destroying our own information or freezing funds quickly before being stolen? Um, well, because the problem is us humans are already very dependent on technology. We rely on technology a lot in such a way that it's hard to just destroy your own information because somewhere out there, the system or web app that you interacted with have stored your information, maybe place it in archive that you thought that was deleted, but not really, right? As for freezing funds quickly, again, that is also hard because it has to go through a request process if it's through a bank, right? And maybe by waiting for that process to finish, maybe your funds has already been taken by the bad actor, right? But don't worry, because usually banks do protect their customers on some level, meaning they have an insurance. Maybe they would say if you lost maybe $50,000, they'll basically give you the money, right? Next is, why are some of the members of the dark pattern legislative? I regard them as serious. I'm interested in the Wi-Fi attack. Could you give more examples of the first way in Wi-Fi attacks? I'm not clear in this part. I could not understand the Bluetooth attacks. I hope you can give me some simple and clear examples to help understand. So, as we have mentioned before, uh, Wi-Fi attacks or Bluetooth attacks in general are what we call a general term, right? The man in the middle attack, right? So, and there are several ways to do that. One is already doing a hotspot, right? So, here's an example for this one. Let's look for some good images and about this, right? So what I mentioned before is the attacker, right, could basically mask itself as the legitimate access point or a router, right? And then the victim, instead of, I mean, the computer that's going to get compromised, right? Instead of going to the legitimate router or access point, they go through the evil twin, and as you can see, it's called MITM, man in the middle attack, right? So it was intercepting it. Let's see another picture here. Let's see. Yeah, another simple image is like this, man in the middle attack. Here's what I'm saying about having the hotspot, right? Using the hotspot. And it's called the evil twin attack. So, but just by searching the internet, you would be able to see how to do it or what the tools to use it, right? Okay, so how about Bluetooth? Let's say, but I believe that should be the same as well. Let's see this cool image. So here's an example. Deploy beacon. Smartphone detects the Bluetooth signal, I guess. Uh, I don't think that was a good example about this one. Okay. So beacons is basically an Apple thing, but let's quickly do a go back there. Yeah, it's definitely the same thing. As you can see, there's the attacker, right? So yeah, impersonation as well. So it's the same. You become the evil twin. So in essence, it's the same. Okay, that's back. Okay, so um, it's I guess time for a break now, and let's take a 15-minute break, and we'll be back to do some lectures and maybe a quick group writing activity. Okay, we'll see you guys in 15 minutes. Okay, so another standards agency we have is the National Institute of Science and Technology, right? So NIST is a US government research and standards agency. It focuses on many types of engineering research, and it includes cybersecurity, right? It has a special publication series. It also has these national vulnerability database, right? I can just go over the slides first and show you guys some resources. Let's see. The publication is from here, and you should be able to see like the NIST SP 883, Guide to Malware in this Incident Prevention and Handling, the 800 100 for Guide for Managers, the 800 153 for securing wireless local area networks. So again, you are not really starting from nothing. If you are able to do your cybersecurity assessment policy and follow the NIST guidelines, you should be easy. It should be easy for you to create one. Okay, so for the NIST, right? We can quickly check that. Let's just close some tabs and let's just use this NIST, right? At the very home page, it does have different resources, right? And featured many topics as well. But we are focused on cybersecurity, okay? And one of the things that was mentioned is the publication. And see here are the list of publications that you can use. Let's see this one. We've been talking about a lot for data integrity. Let's check on this one. So there are authors, there are publication. Let's see. Let's see if we can download the PDF. Okay. So let's just read maybe some of the keywords here and see, right? So it starts with the CIA, and this is the reference, the introduction to the information security. Okay, the 812. Let's go back here. So the solution is again, this is part of the the initial cybersecurity framework already is to identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover, right? This is the cybersecurity framework you should be adding. And let's see with the actual data integrity part. Keywords, data integrity. Let's skip over quickly. There you go. Approach, audience, assumptions, how to guide, solutions, challenge. Let's go to the challenge and solutions, right? So let's see. Okay. So challenge is when data collections sustain a DI attack. I believe this is a data injection attack, but just to be sure, DI attack on data, right? We can just check that further, but let's just use DI attack for now, right? So we don't want unauthorized insertion, deletion, or modification of information, right? And how can we do that, right? So the solutions, right, is basically doing event detection and also integrity monitoring to see if the changes are authorized, logging, reporting, mitigation and containment, forensics and analysis, right? So again, a very recurring theme, right? But it could be that in the implementation part, there would be more example. Let's see if they put architecture, that would be good, right? So here's how you would plan it, right? Your security team basically handles everything, and these are the process flow, right? Your data is here, right? You monitor, and then you detect an event, and regardless of the event and the data as well, you do some logging, right? The logging would also now pass to the forensics and also the data domain so that you can do some analysis from that. And then you can make some reporting, right? And also based on your event detection, right? Something has happened, you should have policies and procedures to do some mitigation and containment. Let's see if there are more architecture. Okay, that's fine for now. Introduction to information security. Okay, we can skip this for now, but it will be good on defining the roles, right? If you are planning to first set up your information security team, right? Okay, data integrity. So I guess the DI could be a integrity attack. And let's just do one more check if that was true. Data integrity attack. Yeah. Okay. Heading back. So while we're talking about NIST as well, right? Um, I guess we can just use the other resource for now before moving on. Okay. So this is another resource that I've used before, right? If you do want to do some information security or cybersecurity assessment, right? You can just go over and use this NIST 7621. Maybe I'll just add that in the slides for later. Um, just add this here, I guess. And this helps you do an assessment to an organization. Let's just head over to um, here, right? The table of contents would already help us, right? Like why small business? This already answers most of the question on businesses don't really have resources to invest, right? And cyber criminals view them as soft targets, easy targets, right? and your business might have money on information that can be valuable to a criminal. Okay, so again, it's a big part of the cybersecurity. We do have a lot of pieces, right, to make it work. Cybersecurity, privacy, physical security, personal security, which is the human element, operational security, contingency planning, and disaster recovery, right? So if we just go back to framework again, on the big picture, to safeguard your information, you must identify, protect, detect, respond, recover, right? And if you see some of these are familiar, so this is what I've used before as a reference, right, to basically do my assessment. So for example, I just choose this section on the protect. It gives me information, right, and description on what does it mean to limit employee access to data and information. Okay, so aside from that, in the slides we have gotten this, not this one, the National Vulnerability Database, and this helps us look for vulnerabilities, basically. Let's see, vendor comments, maybe. Let's see a known vendor here, maybe Oracle. Let's see, analysis description. So they would identify a weakness enumeration like this one, improper restriction of operations within bounds of a memory buffer, and they have a source as well. And it looks, all of these looks so hard to read, right? It really requires knowledge of the system that you are using. Let's go back more. Let's see, general. Sorry, should be vulnerabilities. Access of uninitialized pointer for coders. The program accesses or uses a pointer that has not been initialized. Let's see how this is defined, right? So if you are a developer, right, and you want to add security in your development life cycle, it is good to reference this, right, to basically avoid some of the problems that you may have, right? Just add that there as well here. Also, I think there's another one. It's called Center for Internet Security, right? Let's head back to maybe this one. Center for Internet Security. Okay. So this is another good reference to look for some guidelines, right? If I head back to a certain guideline that I was using, because one of my research before is to look for ways to secure my Oracle MySQL server, right? And it basically gives me guideline as well, right? So like it would give you recommendations, right? And what are the things that you should do in operating system level configuration, installing and planning, backup and disaster recovery, file system permissions, general, MySQL permissions, auditing and logging, authentication. So these are the things that you should configure in your database as well, right? I did a simple research before, and as a summary, some of the things that I tried to do, right? So, for example, this part, right? Auditing and logging. You do want to ensure that log error is not empty. And first, you would execute a SQL query like this one. So show variables like log error, and that should show whether you are um, doing logging of errors or not, right? So if this value here is blank, right? If there's no name here, it means you are not error logging, which is bad, right? Um, and again, you would see the reason for enabling logging, error logging is it increases the ability to detect malicious attempts against the MySQL, right? Another example is, let's go for this one. Let's see. Okay, so next is you do want to, let's say, execute this SQL statement to check your log error verbosity. When we say verbosity, it is from the root word verbose, meaning a description, right? How detailed the description is, right? So the more verbose it is, the more information or description it has. So in this case, right, it does say that there, when you do this query, right, on your database, it could give you a one, a two, or a three, right? One means it's just logging error message. Two means it will log error message and also warning messages. A3 with log error, warning, and some note messages, right? So in this case, you do want to set the value to 3 so that you get the error, warning, and note messages. Okay. Again, what we're talking about is database security. Next is, let's skip for other examples. SQL auto create user. So this one, so in your database as well, you could have MySQL user accounts without password, right? But you can also set that first, you do want to check if there are usernames without any password, right? So you do create a query where the authentication string or password is blank, right? And if you do have that, maybe ask the user or the employee to change it, or then you can delete the username password without a blank. Also, because database also has like username and password, right? So you do want to have a password lifetime, right? You don't just put it to uh, infinity, meaning no number of days. You can maybe set it to 90 days, right? If you put it to 10 days, right, it could be very difficult for the uh, to the user because who wants to change their password every 10 days, right? It's also annoying to the user. So we do want to avoid very short time frame for changing passwords. So for example, this one, the default is 0. It means it's infinite, right? So you do want to set it to 90. Okay, and next, let's look for other. So non-anonymous account. This one is an easy. You just check if there are username with a blank username, right? Just delete it. So this one is the network connection, right? To ensure you have the secure sockets layer to have set to yes, meaning true. So it means that all the network traffic would use this is SSL, not SSLL, SSL and or TLS. So it should have an encrypted data in transit. Okay, let's see. I think that should be it. Okay, so we just add those links as well if you guys are able to access. Okay, so we've talked about the National Institute of Science and Technology. We also talked about the National Vulnerability Database and also the Center for Information Security, which is another organization that provides guidelines. Okay, so we can move on to other cybersecurity law, right? For the European Union, right? Um, they have this Network and Information Security Directive. So the member states are required to adopt a national strategy that sets out concrete policy and regulatory measures to maintain a level of network and information security, right? So again, another mandatory, it means follow it or you get to you need to pay up money. The competent authorities in EU member states and the European Commission will form a cooperation network to coordinate against risk and incidents affecting network and information system. And again, what they're trying to promote is um, coordination in a way that everyone has the same defense, right? Because again, if one of the member state has a weaker cyber defense, then maybe they could infiltrate that weaker member state and then attack the stronger member state through a connection. Right? EU member states must ensure that public bodies and certain market operators take appropriate technical and organizational measures to manage the security of networks and information systems. Right? So, what do you mean by certain market operators? These are basically companies. Right? Public bodies and selected private sector companies must also notify the competent authority of incidents that have a significant impact of the continuity of this service, right? So it's basically reporting. So last time I showed you as well in the United States, if there is a data breach, uh, when it reaches a certain level of users that are breached, they now have to report that to the Attorney General. So the GDPR, right, the General Data Protection Regulation, extends privacy rights of individuals and how their data is managed and moved. Okay, so US does not have a comprehensive cybersecurity law, but we do have some laws, right, like the HIPAA, Sarbanes-Oxley Act, and COPA. So that is a sad part, but we do hope that we do have get to create a comprehensive cybersecurity law as well. So, so HIPAA is basically the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, I think. Yes, it is. Its main function is to basically for the health um, healthcare information, right? So let's see if we can grab a good picture here. And looks like it's not going bigger. How about this one? Yep. So it provides you should like do encryption, physical protection, administrative protection, right? Keep up privacy, right? You also need to train your staff because again they're the weakest link. The breach notification, right? If there's breach. The next one that we do have is what's this? Sarbanes-Oxley Act. So the Sarbanes-Oxley Act does have it's one of the requirements that they do have to follow, right? Um, and again, they have different regulations that were passed, right? First was with the dot-com bubble burst, this is the time where a lot of companies were starting doing internet companies, right? And their value became so overpriced, and burst basically. The Enron fraud. Enron is basically a company that um, tried to hide correct financial statements and make telling other investors that they do have good financial health in their business, when in turn they were not, and it basically created a financial crisis, right? Financial oversight, IT departments. Okay, so it's another guidelines, and it would just say the same thing, and again with having encryption or access control, right? And so on and so forth to prevent fraud, to prevent oversight, right? Next is we have the COPA. COPA is the Children's Online Privacy Protection Rule, right? So this one again, as you can see, it basically protects children. So for, let's say, a video provider or a social media provider, they should be filtering content to child users, right? And not just show everyone all the content, right? Aside from that, their privacy must be protected as well, more securely than the regular user or adult. And we can check more of these, why it was done. So it was done 2000, right? Okay. So it also requires to seek consent from a parent or guardian, right? So so that they won't basically give out their own personal information. Okay. So with that, let's go over a 20-minute group exercise, right? This is still in Ding Talk chat, right? So in your group, do a quick research on equivalent laws on China for HIPAA, PCI, and Sarbanes-Oxley. So you can just look for laws regarding maybe payment system or maybe healthcare information, right? Some, uh, let's say, laws on data, financial information, right? Or maybe privacy laws. So uh, maybe pick one or two equivalent laws, right? Only one member needs to submit in the group chat. So I guess we can do it. We can do uh, maybe maximum of three laws, right? Only one member needs to submit in the group chat, right? When you send your answers in the group chat, please add your names and team numbers. So you can just say, do an example. Say Team Zero with Clark and Min, and we can talk about China law about, let's say, financial services, right? Okay, so I'll give you guys 20 minutes, and we will discuss this as a class for getting resources. So we'll see you in 20 minutes. And again, before 20 minutes, I hope to see some answers from your group. And this group is your team project group, just so you know. Okay, well, we'll see you in a bit. Um, Information exchange between Chinese character processing. Um, it is used in mainland China, Singapore, and other places. We have the 18030, right, for computer systems, and 20281 firewall technology requirements. So those are pretty interesting. them out. Maybe let's go back here. So the 232. Okay, so nice. I'm learning something new from you guys. So this is from People's Republic of China, and this one is the 国标 standards. 国家标准. Okay, so the GB. And looks like the encodings are for uh, ASCII as well, using ASCII. It's using Hanzi, using the prefix. Hmm. So it does include symbols, special characters, and the normal alphabet as well. It looks like it has character set for hiragana Japanese language. It also has the katakana for borrowed Japanese, borrowed so borrowed words from other foreign countries. Japanese would use katakana. Okay, cool. Greek alphabet as well, and pinyin and pafamafa. Okay. The other one is the what was that? The 180, is it 18030? Part of the GB series. So it's these are encodings again. And the next one is the 20281. Looks like it's a paper though. How can I 2GB 20281? I can't access it, that's fine. Okay, next we can go back to the chat. Let's see. Food safety, for sure, it has to be followed, or else a lot of citizens would be affected, get diseases, and so on and so forth. Uh, Regulating the use of chemicals, nutritional requirements. But that's good that there's also nutritional requirements for infants and young children. Quality. Okay, most of the time, the safety or whatever standards that are there is for quality assurance. For the inspection methods and procedures, prohibit illegally added chemicals are prohibited. From Team 6, they explain Sarbanes-Oxley Act. And let's see. In a simple understanding, if the companies cannot guarantee the reliability of their internal controls, okay, the financial reports provided by the company will not have sufficient credibility. Yes, that's a good assumption. In China, we have the network security law of the People's Republic of China, which is similar to HIPAA. It has two provisions. One is network operators should provide technical support to public security, maybe organizations, right? And state security organization, and maintaining national security and investigating crimes to law. Again, HIPAA is more for healthcare. Okay. Um, Next is the PCI DCS standard. It's a standard for 172. Okay, I'll skip this. I think let me open this up quickly and paste it here. See, okay, let's do this first. Team 5, strengthen management of social. So Article 1. Question is, what law is this? Right. Article 2, branch hospital and outpatient departments. Article 3, municipal health administrative department. Article 4, employees of social medical institution. We need ethics. Save the dying, heal the wounded. So my only question is, what law is this? Is this like the national law, or what standard is that one? So from Team 4, coordinating internet financial supervision for central bank. This is a good one, I think. China Banking and Insurance Regulatory Commission, health insurance management measures, right? So it provides insurances to employees with disability income, medical, health, sickness, nursing care. Team 5 talked about bankruptcy cases and the following acts of bankrupt enterprise shall be invalid with the following items. So from group 1, what's this? TC 260. Let me first check if we can quickly search on that one. TC 260. Okay, so what's this doing? Strengthen the security prevention according to the characteristics of different levels of personal information. Research for safety standards that would link up to collection, storage, and backup of personal informations. Okay. And the last two, this one is the GBT 2239, the classified protection system. Let's see if I can search this too. Does not show me a good format, so I'm not going to show that anymore. It's widely used in various industry to carry out construction rectification, grading, evaluation of information system. Okay. So again, so now when we're thinking about these different laws, this one is super general. Is if you create the business, there's many laws that you have to think about. One is the law for your nation, right? Your country, the law for your or the regulations on your industry, right? And also if it affects if your acts and you have global customers, right? You now have to know the laws for those foreign countries, right? And again, most of them do overlap. So the easiest way to do is if you, let's say, implemented a GDPR for your data privacy, then it's easier for you to, let's say, create a new market in US. Let's say you started with the Europe, right? If you got the GDPR, it should be easier to open up market and have the compliance for, let's say, data privacy for other countries. Okay, so we do have the references, and we can do some muddiest points and then do concept tests. Let's see. In cyber attack from Bill, what methods do the cyber attackers use to do reconnaissance? Um, the fastest answer for this one is port scanners, right? Or like the Nmap or Wireshark. How can a cyber attacker look for vulnerabilities in a system? You can use a tool like Kali Linux and maybe use another software, right, inside of Kali Linux using Metasploit. From Jay, nowadays, more and more mobile phones software reads mobile phone information, right? Because it can't be used without reading it. So um, so if you compare an iOS device versus Android device, so from what I've been seeing in the researches, articles, and news, it looks like Android has been uh, pulling more mobile phone information rather than Apple iOS. So maybe it's more like be careful when using Android phones. I want to know how to avoid being read. So mostly in your phone, you do have like privacy settings, and like let's say even when they ask you about do you wanna send information for again to make the application better for the developers, and maybe just you just want to put that as off, right? And again, if they build it that way, you don't really have any choice, right? Because they control the hardware or they implemented the hardware, right? And some softwares that are can't be removed as well. Recently, I heard that a company has developed a software. When the phone information is read, the software will give a fake information to the software that needs to be read. Oh, interesting. So that's a good deterrent or a mitigation, right? It's similar to, let's say, fake phone calls, and you have an app that deals with fake phone calls. And this time around, you have an app that gives fake information to the software that basically gathers information from your phone. From Carl, he said, I learned about attack methods and was shocked. At the same time, I felt my information security was very fragile. This is true for most of us because we do leave a lot of digital footprint, meaning every time we access an app or a website or your phone or the Wi-Fi, you do leave a footprint, and that footprint can somehow define who that person is, which is you, right? So it's really scary. When I install software, I often install a lot of unnecessary software. That's going back to potentially unwanted apps, which is PUA, so that this software is also very annoying. Boot automatically, slow down my boot speed, pop-up ads, uninstall is troublesome. Maybe just to correct this one, and these software are also very annoying. They boot automatically, slow down my boot, yeah, pop-up ads, and uninstall are very troublesome, right? Okay. Linda, I saw that they're passed the Investigatory Powers Act 2016. Doesn't this mean that authoritarian regimes around the world provide an international standard to justify their intrusive surveillance power? So, well, it is interesting when I started looking in the internet as well. There's no seem to be an international standard for maybe cybersecurity, right? The do's and don'ts, right? Um, and then again, each nation have their own reason to do intrusive surveillance, right? Um, Definitely grants them more power and control, right? So yes, it gives power to, and allows service providers to collect our browsing history and allow the police and various governments to view our online behavior. Doesn't this mean that our privacy is transparent? Yes, we no longer have privacy. That's a big thing. So, and the scary part is, even though, let's say, you live in a country where they don't really have big surveillance, but they still gather data silently on you, right? You just don't know, and that's scary. So both of them are very scary. And the sad part is the only way to protect your privacy is definitely making sure you're safe in using application or websites, or rather than try to be isolated with the tech, and for sure your privacy is protected. From Green, copyright design and patent law can be seen in various copyright protection categories in the UK. For all kinds of works, copyright protection is very comprehensive and systematically planned categories. However, compared with the copyright protection law in China, it is established later than that in the UK, and you can say the classification of security is not detailed. In the early years, it was sued by other international copyright owners for copyright problems, but now it has improved. So my question is the copyright protection law in China. Okay, so you're saying even though China created it later than the UK, it looks like it's not as well defined as the UK copyright law, right? Okay. From Faye, government surveillance may be to protect people, but I once watched a drama in which a country made false facts for the sake of its national image, then faced with some problems that could not avoid damaging the national image. It is really good to cover up the reality while few people know the truth. So this has always been a dilemma for the government, or a problem for the government. Let's just take the case of the COVID-19 or coronavirus. So this is regardless of what country, okay? So the problem is, countries or some nations would try to hide the information or the real number of cases, and the reason why is economics, right? They want to manipulate the economy in such a way that they want to show that we don't have diseases and virus here. We don't need to lock down, shut down. We can continue operation, so that that country can continue doing their business, their trade with other countries, right? And not putting a damage to the economy. So it's like rising up all the time. So, but that's also a problem because you can hide the fact, and they can hope that they're lucky that they hide the real cases all the time so that people believe that there's nothing wrong, and then in the end there's nothing wrong anymore, right? But usually it goes the other way around, where people would say that, or the country would say that everything is good, nothing bad is happening, right? But because they didn't really reacted to the issue, to the virus quickly, right? Like doing a quick lockdown puts the economy down, but they can recover faster, right? So if you keep hiding the truth, right, and you don't deal with the issue, again, it's like a ticking time bomb where it blows up, meaning people believe that it's okay, so the economy is here, and then now it goes down very sharp, and now would recover at a very, very slower pace compared to the countries that basically declared that there's a problem and then they try to fix it, right? So this is the same as humans, right? Humans as well is when you basically admit that there's a problem, it's easier to fix it, right? If you don't admit that there's a problem, it's harder to fix. And that's why even the thinking of a country is similar to a single person, a human, a society, right? It's very subjective, or sometimes very manipulative, or very leaning towards to greed, because they only think about the money, the impact, right? They are scared of the immediate loss, but they didn't think about the long term, um, bigger loss, right? From Tsingtao, let's see. In terms of network security law, I think that many rights and interests are protected. Okay. In the Digital Economy Act 2010, it prevents domain names from being harmed by infringement. And in the Malicious Communications Act 1988, it also restricts malicious speech in the network. Okay. So that's a cool summary and sharing. Thank you for that. From Jeff, uh, in terms of network security law, I think this is very necessary for programmers to understand. The digital economy law protects the rights and interests of the internet from infringement. Okay, I think it could be that I pasted the same thing again. So but kind of looks like the same though. From Katie, the investigation power law of 2016 is beneficial for security departments and police to arrest cybercrime, and makes it impossible for those who use cyber crimes to escape legal sanctions. Okay, so this is just a summary as well. Thank you. From Chris, I think the topic of Snooper's charter is more interesting. It allows police intelligence officers and government department managers to view internet connection records without a warrant. Yes, I do think that it's an infringement of personal privacy, right? So it could be okay if there's imminent threat or danger to national security, but if they're just gonna do that for a civilian without any suspicion at all, right? So that's basically an invasion of privacy. But then again, usually the government would just say, well, it's imminent threat, or there's a danger. From Stephen, interested in Data Protection Act was enacted in the UK in 1998, right? So it clearly states that citizens have a legal right to all information and data relevant to them, allows citizens to correct errors in their personal data, right? And so on and so forth, right? So yes, what's really good in the UK is, right? I think in EU right now is, can you request all data, let's say in Facebook, um, in the UK, let's say, yeah, yeah. So there are already peoples that blog about it, right? Let's see. This is just a, let's go for news. Yeah, because I've already heard previously that you can request all data from Facebook. Let's say EU citizen. Yeah. Okay, it looks like Facebook has this GDPR, right? So this is from Facebook itself. But yes, so you can request for all the information Facebook has for you. But from what my research from before, that it it requires you to have persistent to keep asking for that, and eventually they'll give it to you because it's required by law, but they do try to avoid that. Okay. Why is it not loading quickly? Okay, so from Ethan, I understand the importance of standards and laws to the internet. So I would like to know whether the real name system of online social platforms can be implemented in the future. So when you say real name, using the real name of the person, so for Facebook, I think it does require you to use your real name, but I don't think it checks it against a real ID from the government. So yeah, it should be implemented definitely. So you can hide your information, right? I mean, at least trick other people. So the impact would be now it's maybe it's now easier to target people if you're bad, right? And know who they are really. Because again, you would have some people that would try to use their nickname instead to really hide their information. See if this opens up again. Okay. So China has strengthened laws in this area in recent years for network security. Good job on China on that part. Okay. Password management is very useful. Password is often cracked when account is stolen. I think password sets should be more complex when registering for each account, right? So yes, Michael. So there's two things that we need to talk about password management, and one is, I think there are um, I forgot what is the name, but there are apps that really help you with. Oh, this one password. Uh, Maybe you guys can find a similar one in in China, but like one password is a more secure way to have your passwords in, right? But another thing that's trending in the news right now is the elimination of password, right? And let's see, right? So even Microsoft, right? They're mentioning already that um, to remove passwords, right? Because again, most of the time, the um, the way that the attackers get data, attack people's information, right, is always through username and password. Again, the passwords, right? So that was always been the weakest type of security. So like this has been the talk like in the cybersecurity world to why not just eliminate passwords, right? To remove that weakest link. And again, um, even Microsoft is wanting to end that by using modern authentication, right? So to improve security and switch to passwordless multi-factor authentication. Let's zoom that more, right? This one, convenience as well. So you just need to click or touch. You don't need to type your password, and it's basically scalable, right? Because again, password is a very old uh, technology for securing systems. Hard to remember. Yep. So there are several ways. The Windows Hello is the face recognition in your laptop or PC. So this one, I do use this Microsoft Authenticator all the time. So usually when I used to log in my CPU account, I need to put my password and then it would send a text message to my phone, the multi-factor authentication, and put my verification code. But with an authenticator like this one, it would just send my phone and then it will just ask me to approve or deny. And when I click approve, and I'm ready to go, right? And again, there's other things like FIDO security keys and Microsoft Edge. Okay, so see, let's see, reduce also the prompts. Let's see a quick of the white paper. I guess it's the same. Okay. And let's see, passwords are no longer enough. So here, 81% of hacking related breaches use either stolen or weak password. So 81%, that's so high, right? And then you can reduce your odds of being compromised by up to almost 100% by implementing multi-factor authentication, right? Okay, so that's something to know about. Okay, after a series of bill established by local government, there are still people who will drill holes. There are still many criminals breaking the law, but we often can't deal with these problems. So we establish a better bill or implement a more powerful prevention and control measure? Um, I would say both, right? But basically, adding a powerful tool to prevent that is better, right, than establishing a new law. Because again, law is just there, but if they can't implement the law, um, people would still try to violate it. Okay. The question for here is ISACA is a globally recognized leading organization for IT governance, monitoring, security, and standards compliance. So, what is the standard here? Is the answer true in this case? There's no answer is true as long as it involves the notion of a standard. So, are you asking what makes it a standard, right? Um, well, that's going deeper to the just looking at the definition of the word standard, right? So when we say standard, it's basically a level of quality or attainment, right? I always mention this that the guidelines, the ISO standards or the NIST, right? What they try to achieve is always the quality assurance. How do you achieve quality assurance? Is through following best practices and protecting your resources, right? Because again, if you're not protected good enough, right, and then your data or your item inventory or your product gets damaged, manipulated, changed, then the level of that quality goes down, right? So it's always the aim to provide good quality, whether it's like the food safety standards that was shared by another team, right? So it wants to achieve quality. So it's kind of like a loose or general term that people use, right? And even in conversations you would say that, oh, why are we doing this? Oh, because this is the standards for, let's say, in the community, right? Or oh, this is the standards for in the neighborhood. This is the standards in our office, right? So standards, another word for that is the norm, or meaning the normal way to do things. Okay, this one, not very familiar with BS 112 2009 specification for personal information management system. Its theme is to emphasize the organizational responsibility and data protection related to the Comprehensive Data Protection Act of 1998. Okay, so this is just an FYI, I guess, for your information. Okay, for Alex, after reading the attack methods, I want to know whether the hackers' attack technology can really achieve the control of some streetlights. I think we have this before already, so I just added it again. So skip that. Or if you did send the same muddiest point, please don't do that. 'Cause I kind of had the same already, or maybe just I opened the old muddiest point. So from Ralph, we all know that there are many standards, right? I'll proceed to the question. But what should we do if we can't meet the standard, right? If you can't meet that standard, one is you first try if you can achieve it in your own organization, right? You either hire or assign a new person to deal with the compliance. They call it compliance, meaning comply to follow the rules, follow the standards, right? Have a compliance team or committee, right? And also, because even though let's say you can't meet that standard, but if let's say the government that's checking on you knows that you are trying your best to achieve that standard, right? Most of the time they would not penalize you heavily because if you're doing your best effort to meet it, at least they would think that you did not do it in bad faith, meaning you did not do that intentionally, right? It's like when you did a crime, right, that you accidentally have done instead of intentionally doing, right? The government would give more um, leeway or maybe more chances to someone who just did it accidentally, right? We can't always give up because we can't meet that standard. Maybe there is a better way. Another way is you, again, shift the responsibility to another outsourced company, right? So that they manage the compliance for you. And then now you meet the standard, right? Again, that's the only way. Improve your business processes, right? If it is lacking. Okay, from Alice, law and order exists of establishing justice. And when they fail in this purpose, they become the dangerously structured dams that block the flow of social progress. Okay, nice. Quote by Martin Luther King. Thank you for sharing that, Alice. In ancient China, if a servant wanted to sue his master, the servant was to be flogged or subjected to other severe punishment. Yikes. After that, if he survives, he can take his master to court. Wow, what a way to go. It's too bad. Although cybersecurity law, to a large extent, to protect the legitimate rights of and interests of people, but it may be difficult in different countries for different groups of people to achieve complete legal protection. What is the essential difference between business continuity management and disaster recovery management? So, from the word itself is business continuity. If something has happened, right? And then you were able to recover now, right? A portion of it after your disaster recovery, then what is your plan of action to? Usually, the aim of business continuity management is to return to the normal levels of business operation, right? So that's a quick answer to that one, right? But sometimes they always go together because you do need recovery and also continuation as part of your plan, right? Next, is there an organization committee such as Investigation Powers Commission in the United States? Is it established by the government? We can check. Investigation Powers Committee. So it could be investigation and oversight, though, right? And while we're here, we'll do a quick check. Continuity versus disaster recovery. You can already see the key differences here, right? So continuity, as you say that if there's something happened, how can you keep continuing your business? Hence the word business continuity. Disaster is respond and how do you return to normal. So I stand corrected. So business continuity is during and immediately after. and recovering is after the event. Okay. Okay, a few more. I quite agree with the explanation of loopholes in the courseware because as long as they are created by logic, they may be defeated by using logic. And I just would like to add you one thing, because usually the logic, who creates the logic is from a human mind. A human mind is still a bit subjective. So again, or bias, right? So again, logics in general, whatever mathematical it is or logic it is, it's still biased because it's based on human, right? It's humans who build that. So still, there would be ways to have loopholes, right? Most of the time. Okay, so this is installing antivirus and installing intrusion detection and vulnerability scanning. Okay, so that gives you multi-layer protection. Good, that's correct. I'll skip to the question. Let's see. There's no question, so we can move on. Fire and smoke detection important to network security. Maybe it is correct, but you do want to say as physical security first. And if the physical security is breached, then it affects your network security, I guess. Because many components, including the chassis, the computer rooms, can easily catch fire without proper cooling treatment. True. Okay. Thanks for sharing this, Joe. Like, in September, Huawei's laboratory caught fire because of steel bars. If the air detector is installed or was installed, right, it may it would have not caused such a tragedy. So I think the enterprise must take measures to prevent fire and smoke for sure. Okay, from Randy, if the company wants to develop a software and transfer it to software tester, but some bugs are not found by software testers, and some bad guys start to attack the software for this bug, what should the company do? If they were alerted about this, then the easiest way is to one is definitely fix the bug, and two is you do have to check if the bad guys were able to enter in other applications connected to it, right? So you do have to check if that software is interacting with other software or hardware, right? Because now with that information, you want to check uh, until where did the attacker gotten into? How far did they went into the system, right? Okay, so that's for the muddiest point for today, and we'll continue with concept test. Let's see, concept test. This one, concept test. We go concept test 5. Okay, so I hope you guys know the drill already or what to do, right? I'm pasting this in the chat and looking forward to your responses, and maybe add a group voting again. Check if everyone, if the question is very easy to everyone or not. So just so you know as well, so the way concept test it's helpful for us if we basically created the problem well or good, we should have 60 or maybe 70 to 80% correct answers. right? If the question was very easy, that is also bad because it means that we didn't let you guys think about the answer. I mean the question. And if we get 100%, it means the question is bad. Also, if the answer, let's say 80% or 60% gets the wrong answer, it means that either the question is bad or maybe the instructor did not really teach the material, or maybe the student did not do more researches about the question. So again, it's a way for us to assess both ways, right? Okay, so now let's give you more time to do concept tests, and let's be back because we do want to discuss a little bit for that. So let's go back on discussion at 11:45, right? We'll do discussion of concept tests and do some wrap up and tell you guys more about next week. Okay? See you guys later. So it looks like let's see, let me check. Yep, most have voted D. All right, let's just do a new share first. Again, just to remind, to get full credit on concept test, you should also need to have an explanation in the chat. Yeah. And thank you for the first post by Yuting Lee, right? By Green. And basically she laid out all the title for each NIST special publication. Okay. So I guess this is just a quick search for everyone, so that's good. It should be an easy answer. Okay. All right. So we're done with the concept test. And so this ends for this week, right? This week we talked about this is the correct schedule, assuming that. We talked about have you share? Google Chrome. Okay. Okay, so this week we talked about we had the orientation, right? Monday. We talked about foundations of cybersecurity, module 1, module 2, cyber targets and vulnerability, module 3, cyber threats, module 4, risk management, and module 5, regulations and standards, right? Okay, so during the weekend, I guess for you guys, it's just one Sunday. So during the weekend, on my part, I'll focus on checking the hands-on practice because I just received your HOP one yesterday or one day ago, right? So give me more time as I want to spend time to really give a feedback, right? And I'll make that as my first priority. Then I'll check with the team project proposal, right? And see the team submission. Then one thing to note that come week 2, right, when you start on Monday, you'll have a different instructor, Jonathan Helmus, right? So he'll be discussing the rest of the modules, right? And another thing to remind everyone is your last day is going to be with me, right? So this is after module 10, right? M10. Module 10 is going to be with me, and you'll have a final exam, team project final report and submission, and team project final PowerPoint submission. Okay. And I will basically coordinate with Monica if it's possible for each of the team to present like virtually, maybe have one laptop for the whole classroom and have one team to present one at a time, because it's still better to do a live presentation. Okay. Um, so again, your next week, Monday to Friday, will be with Jonathan Helmus, right? And the Saturday for next week, I'll be your um, last day instructor, right? Okay, and then once we're at this stage, I'll talk about the IS 470. But for now, this should be good. So if you have not submitted your previous assignments, again, um, late submission is fine. There are just a few deductions though, but it's still better to submit than not submit at all because that gives you zero. And just to remind everyone on like the weight of each points. So if you don't really submit, it's gonna impact your grade a lot. And just a reminder, okay, here, just a reminder, missing the concept test in muddiest point, just by missing them, you would lose 20% of your grade right away, right? Uh, Especially if you miss submitting an HOP, a hands-on practice, right? You lose 40%. And that's why you also have to write clearly and properly, so that you don't get a deduction in the grade. I do know that the feedback, you didn't have a feedback yet, right? But once I've given that feedback, I'll be more strict on the grades. But for now, please practice how to write clearly, right? Something that I can understand right away. Okay, so think that should be good for today. And I'll give this, I'll end the class now, and maybe you guys can use the rest of the 9 minutes or maybe take an earlier break, right? To finish up some of the requirements for the course. So thank you. I know we didn't have a chance to really to talk using voice because you guys are in one classroom. It's kind of hard, but I really, really appreciate everyone's effort turning in their mightiest point and interacting with discussion in the slides and concept tests, right? At least I do feel like I'm talking to you guys personally, right? Um, and again, it does not end there. Anytime you do have questions, you can just ping me in the chat, whether in the group chat or personally, right? And yep, it's basically an open communication. Again, you learn from me, I should learn from you guys as well. Okay, so thank you for the first 6 days and 5 lessons, and I hope to see you soon again. So goodbye for now, and have a good lunch later.